These are such jewels of our rep, these ballets that have a big core presence. It definitely is an honor to think about the legacy of that ballet, who all has danced it before and who's going to dance it after, and I get to basically be a placeholder in it for, from this time to this time in the full history of a ballet.
I'm Caitlin, a former professional ballerina turned dance educator and career mentor, and this is the Brainy Ballerina podcast. I am here for the aspiring professional ballerina who wants to learn what it really takes to build a smart and sustainable career in the dance industry. I'm peeling back the curtain of the professional dance world with open and honest conversations about the realities of becoming a professional dancer. Come along to gain the knowledge and inspiration you need to succeed in a dance career on your terms. Hello and welcome to the Brainy Ballerina podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin Sloan, and I am joined today by Lars Nelson. Lars has danced with New York City Ballet since 2010. During his time with the company, he has originated roles in over a dozen new works and has performed over 60 different ballets from the New York City Ballet repertoire all over the world. Lars, I am so excited to connect with you today, and I want to hear, why did you take your very first dance class?
Yeah, hi Caitlin, it's nice to see you. I took my very first dance class because I was singing in the Grand Rapids Choir of Men and Boys when I was 10, and the Grand Rapids Ballet asked the boys choir to sing in Nutcracker that year during the snow scene. I had never seen ballet before, and I was just mesmerized, and I said, I want to do that for the rest of my life. Since the snow scene is in Act 1, the boys could leave at intermission, basically. And I was the only one who stayed for Act 2 every single performance, just because I was just so enthralled by what was happening on stage. Since I was 10-year-olds say they want to do this and that and all these other things, right? So my parents didn't really think much of it at the time. But that year, my school, I was in the Rockford public school system in Michigan. And that year, the Grand Rapids Ballet sent a flyer home at the end of the school year with all the kids saying, if you'd like to sign up for summer dance classes, come to the Grand Rapids Ballet. I brought the flyer to my mom and said, here's this flyer. And she was like, oh yeah, wait, didn't you say you wanted to take some dance classes? I was like, yeah, I do. And she signed me up for a week that summer, and I was 11 at the time, surrounded by a lot of 5-year-old girls, and it didn't faze me one bit.
And what was your training like?
I took the 1 week in the summer, and she said, do you want to do another week? And I said, sure. So she signed me up for classes in the fall, and I think pretty early on it was classes almost every day during the week. Just slowly worked up the levels at the Grand Rapids Ballet, and then I met a teacher who we have in common, Jefferson Baum in West Michigan, and he really took me to another level of dedicated training. He taught me the definition of hard work, really, how to really put in that work that you're going to see those results you want to see as a dancer. I was taking classes every day, Monday through Saturday, and then he ran a youth ballet on Sundays that I would even take classes and rehearse with the youth ballet on Sundays. So it was 7 days a week. I was very ballet focused. I didn't really do a lot of other dance styles, which actually now I wish I would have, because they all really help shape you as a dancer, being more rounded. It helps you with your ballet if you can have the jazzier movements too, or we even have some ballets in our repertoire with some tap dance. So I kind of have to fake it a little bit. But yeah.
How did you end up at the School of American Ballet? Did you go to the summer intensive first?
Yeah, so Jefferson had told me, you need to go to a program in the summer, and you need to go away to a program where there's going to be 40 other guys, and half of them are going to be better than you, and you're going to be right there with that other half, and so you're going to be able to look to them and say, I need to get on their level, right? Well, it's funny that I was actually going on a European tour with Jefferson when he was the director of the Blue Lake Fine Arts Camp. And the dates there were going to overlap with the SAB summer program by, I think, 1 week. So I wasn't going to go to the summer course audition because I knew I was going to be in Europe with Jefferson. And when he found that out, he said, oh no, he told my mother, you need to take Lars to that audition. In fact, I order you to take Lars to that audition. And she said, oh, okay. So then I auditioned for the summer program, and the director of the school, Kay Mazo, she was teaching that audition. And after the audition, her assistant came up to me and said, the lady in there really wants to see you come to the School of American Ballet this summer. And I was like, oh, okay. I thought, well, I'm not going to be able to come because I'm going to be in Europe with Jefferson. So it worked out, since Jefferson was at the School of American Ballet, he had some contacts there. And so he kind of messaged them and said, hey, look, my student Lars got into the summer program. He's going to be with me. Is it okay if he comes a week late to the summer program? And of course, they said, yeah, that's fine. No worries. And so then I went to the summer program in 2006 and then came back to Michigan and studied privately with Jefferson for a year, and then went back to the summer program in 2007. And then they invited me to stay for the winter term.
And what was that experience like for you? Was it hard moving away at that young age?
It wasn't hard to move away at that young age for me because I was so determined to be a ballet dancer, and I knew that that was the next step I needed to take in my journey to become a professional dancer. I was 16 at the time, and so I was excited. And the School of American Ballet campus is at Lincoln Center, so it's a very safe area. It's the arts mecca here in the States. Like-minded people pursuing art at the highest level. It was very cohesive, right? So I wasn't ever like homesick or anything, going away from home. My parents probably were,
Yeah.
but they knew again that that was the right thing, and if they wanted me to get to where I wanted to go, that was necessary.
How did you find out that you got the contract with New York City Ballet?
So my last year in the school, it was in the wake of the financial crisis. So they kind of had to let some people go. And so now they were looking to kind of replenish, as many companies around the States were. And so normally other companies will come to New York and they'll audition. When we at the School of American Ballet would get offered a contract with another company, we would go and take that to Kay Mazo, and then we would say, hey, this company offered a contract as an apprenticeship or whatever. And she would say, okay. And then she would take that to the director of New York City Ballet at the time, Peter Martins, and basically say, oh, this student got a job here. What do you think? And he would either say, I think that would be a great fit for that dancer, or he would say, I'm actually interested in taking that dancer here in New York City Ballet, so tell them to hold off on accepting that job. So this year, it was early 2010, that these companies were starting to say, hey, we need to know now. We need to really know now if you're going to take this job or not. And so it kind of put the pressure on Peter to say, well, okay, I'm seriously considering these dancers, so tell them to just tell that company if they can wait, or just turn it down altogether because I'm seriously considering them. So Kay Mazo said to me, to a few of us that were getting our apprenticeships that year, he called us into a meeting and said, it's not official 100% yet, because obviously there's always things that could come up, but Peter is interested in hiring you as apprentices next year. Again, it's not official yet, so don't go, cheering from the rooftops. But if companies are telling you that they need to know, then tell them that you respectfully decline. We were excited, but it was a little delayed, like a little abated. Like, well, he could always change his mind, or there could be other things that come up. But yeah, and then in the end, it was true that there was 3 girls and 2 boys that got apprenticeships that year.
What was that first year like for you with your transition from a student in the school to professional with the company?
At the school, the technique class that you take and the variations or the partnering class, that's your day, right? You spend 100% of your energy on those things. Then with whatever energy you have left, you do your homework for school or whatnot. But transitioning to the company, all of a sudden your ballet class in the morning turns into your warm-up for your rehearsals from noon until 7 or till 2 hours before the show that night. It was definitely a transition of learning how to pace myself throughout the day to get to the show and through the performance that night, of using the ballet class to work on my technique. But that all of a sudden wasn't my whole day. I had hours of rehearsals later, and learning how to string the steps together. So instead of like in a ballet class where we have 8 counts to this side and 8 counts to this side or whatever, all of a sudden you're learning a minute and a half of repertory, and you need to remember, okay, what's the transition step to the next thing? And I'm over on this side of the stage and I'm over here. Or when you're understudying, watching those dancers and knowing, well, I'm not cast to do this, but at a moment's notice, I need to be able to go in, and Rosemary Dunleavy, the head ballet mistress, needs to know, can I trust that person to be able to put them in? So really being a sponge and trying to absorb as much as I could. Yeah, it was a transition for sure, but obviously one that was just so exciting, knowing that I was a part of a rich legacy and history with New York City Ballet was just so exciting. You hear about these ballets for so long, and you watch them on the stage, and then now getting to be in the room, in the back of the room, and learning it, and then the opportunity to get to dance some of those was just, it was thrilling.
What was the first ballet you performed with New York City Ballet?
So the first ballet I performed was, I was actually thrown on for a performance. It was Jerome Robbins' Four Seasons. I was understudying the fall section, and one of the dancers for the last show, his back went out. He got hurt. And so I was thrown on. So anytime you get thrown on, or an understudy has to go in, you have a rehearsal with the rep director, sometimes alone, sometimes with the rest of the corps that's in the ballet. But this one I had just a rehearsal alone with the rep director. And the very first step that you do in fall in Four Seasons, you run and do a big grand jeté, and you land in a crouched fourth position in silence. And I just remember running out and doing a big grand jeté in the back of everyone, and just looking out and seeing the blackness of the theater with the little jewel lights around the rings, the little glow, and just thinking like, wow, this is incredible. Like, this is like my first time officially on stage as an apprentice in New York City Ballet. Oh my goodness. And then quickly the music starts, and oh, okay, don't forget what you have to do. You know, what are the steps? Where are you going? What's the traffic? It was definitely exhilarating for sure.
That's really cool. You've danced so many legendary roles. I'd love to hear what has been your favorite role to dance.
My favorite role to dance, strictly dance-wise, has been Kammermusik #2. And it's a, not obscure, but lesser known George Balanchine work. Everyone is familiar with the Four Temperaments, which was music by Hindemith. And this is the only other ballet in the rep to Hindemith music, is Kammermusik. The story goes that Balanchine had just choreographed Ballo della Regina, which is a corps of all ladies. He was very much female focused in ballet. This was a corps of all ladies and one principal man. And Rosemary, the ballet mistress I was talking about earlier, she said to him, she said, you know, Mr. B, you just did this beautiful ballet, Ballo della Regina, for all these ladies. You finally have good guys in the company. Why don't you do something for them? And he said, you know, I have this really difficult piece of music. I don't really, I'm struggling to figure out what to do with. You know what? I'll think of something. I'll think of something. And so he called the 8 corps men to a rehearsal and did this whole first movement. It's really fast. There's crazy arm movements, and the music is really driving. And Rosemary said she had never seen the guys so focused and determined as when he was choreographing Kammermusik. And he did the whole first movement in one rehearsal. And at the end of the rehearsal, he looked at her and he said, it just might work. And so that's the only Balanchine ballet in our rep that has an only male corps. There's 2 principal couples, but an only male corps. And so we really feel like that's our concerto barocco. We really approach that ballet with a determination to make the audience see that, you know, the concerto barocco is this jewel of the rep. Well, Kammermusik is as well. It's definitely a ballet that when you finish it, we finish it again with just the male corps on stage. We're the last thing that's happening. We rush to the front of the stage. We all do a canon of pirouettes down the all the way down, and we finish with this big kick on the knee. And you really feel like when you see the sweat dripping down as that curtain's coming down, you're like, I just danced a ballet. I let it all out there and left it all on the stage. And it's really one that you feel fulfilled when you finish.
Do you have a most challenging role that you've danced?
Most challenging role is probably the corps square dance. That's another one that you feel like you danced a ballet. The whole thing is like petit allegro. There's 6 corps couples and 1 principal couple. So the corps is very featured in that ballet. That's another one that you're on stage throughout most of the ballet. Again, when that one finishes, your legs are definitely screaming, and you feel like, okay, that was a ballet with a capital B.
Do you have a dream role that you haven't gotten to dance yet that you would love to do?
Yeah, a dream role for me probably would be Concerto Barocco. It's just a beautiful, like that's like very lady core heavy, but then there's a one principal man who dances with the first violin principal ballerina, and there's not much dancing, it's more partnering for the man, but you really feel like when I observe it, it looks like you really feel, even though you're not featured as much because you're just partnering, you really feel integral to the work to support the ballerina and all these big lifts around the stage and then being that support for her as she dances around. The music is beautiful. It brings tears to your eyes even though there's no plot, right? It's just plain ballet on the stage. It's a one that makes you emotional.
How do you feel that you've changed as a dancer? I mean, I remember you as a 15, 16-year-old, dual enrolled.
Yeah,
Well, were you dual enrolled or were you just taking classes at Grand Valley?
I was just taking classes there.
Okay.
Yeah, it would have been nice if I could have gotten college credit for it,
Yeah.
but it was kind of my high school was not looking a blind eye, but they said we'll let you go and do this, but if your grades slip, we're going to revoke that right away. And my grades never slipped, so they let me just do it kind of as a little side thing.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember you, I was a college freshman and you were taking classes at Grand Valley and, we all kind of knew that you were going to go on to do something
Mm.
really great. I'm curious, how have you changed as a dancer since then or even since you started your professional career 15 years ago?
Mm. I definitely have become a lot more aware of myself in the context of the ballets more, as opposed to just being out there and trying to do the steps because you're in the middle of a big core and I don't want to get in anyone's way and I don't want to mess up. And now I can give more of the artistry and know that I'm not just doing steps, right? I'm dancing ballet. Honestly, I feel like that has been a pretty recent development for me. Having that year, about a year and a half off during COVID, was kind of strange. Coming back after then was a little like, okay, wait, we need to sort of refigure this out. But yeah, I feel like pretty recently I've been able to feel more like I'm dancing rather than just executing the steps in a way that is going to not get in someone's way or detract from what the principals are doing. But it's like really we're all dancing together, even though the core may be doing something different than what the principals are doing. But this is all one cohesive piece, and we all have a part to play in it.
Can you talk about your experience dancing in the core? You're doing a lot of the same ballets many times, right? How do you keep it fresh and exciting?
Yeah, dancing the core it's an honor to be entrusted with that and to kind of be that anchor. There's new apprentices coming in every year and new core members. And so to be that person that I know that they all look to and say, okay, what is he doing? Okay, I'm going to emulate that. Because if you've been doing it for 15 years, obviously, you're doing something right. Sometimes I'm not gonna lie, sometimes it does get a little like, okay, we got to do this one again. But these are such jewels of our rep, these ballets that have a big core presence. It definitely is an honor to think about the legacy of that ballet, who all has danced it before and who's going to dance it after. And I get to basically be a placeholder in it for from this time to this time in the full history of a ballet. There's a lot of camaraderie and togetherness that we feel in the core. And I know that sometimes when people get promoted to soloist or principal, they often will, that's one thing that they lament is the camaraderie that they now feel like they're kind of having to let go of a little bit because now they're suddenly in rehearsals by themselves a lot and they say that they really miss it. Yeah, it's definitely something that I'll also be able to take when I retire from dancing is I worked on the ultimate team for a long time, and knowing how to work with others, and not letting an ego get in the way or whatnot.
Yeah. There is so much dancers need to learn as they pursue a professional dance career. It can be completely overwhelming. Where do you even start? With your intention. To me, this is the first step in defining success on your terms. Once you have an intention for your career based on your core values, you can begin to hone in on a strategy to make your goals a reality. But without it, you will always feel out of alignment, out of control, and ultimately unfulfilled in your career. So, how do you figure out what success means to you? With the Brainy Ballerina Intentional Career Handbook. This is not just your ordinary book. The Intentional Career Handbook walks you through everything you need to think about as you embark on your dance career. With over 50 guided question prompts, you will dive deep into determining what really matters to you in a dance career based on your individual core values. By the end of this handbook, you will not only be crystal clear on your goals, but in the mindset you need to make it happen. Tap the link in the show notes to download your copy today and start pursuing your dance career with intention. That's a good segue into my next question because I know you're pursuing your Bachelor of Business
Mm-hmm.
in specifically supply chain and operations management
Mm-hmm.
at Penn State. So, can you talk about your sort of unconventional path to a college degree, how you make this work?
Yeah. So when I first graduated high school, I took some online college courses through Grand Rapids Community College because they had them fully online. This was back in 2010 and 11. So really before a lot of places were doing online school. And then I was dancing a lot. And so I just said, I need to really focus on the ballet. So I'm going to put college courses kind of on a back burner for now. And then a few years later, I transferred my credits then to Penn State because they were really one of the first to offer entire programs completely online. Whereas at Grand Rapids Community College, sometimes they're going to say, oh, this one you have to be sort of in person for or whatnot. So, but Penn State offered them fully online. So I enrolled there and started taking classes like a little sporadically. Took another little break because I was dancing a lot again. There was a festival we were doing called the Here Now Festival, which was crazy. We did something like 44 ballets in 4 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, there's no way I could do school classes at the same time. So I kind of put that again away for a little bit. And then it was during the pandemic that I kind of had this 30,000 foot view of my career. And I was like, I love ballet and I really love being a dancer, but maybe I need to think about something that's going to come next. Maybe I don't want to do this for the rest of my life, like in some capacity as being a repertory director or a teacher. So I re-enrolled during the pandemic and really, that was the first time I was able to go full time to college. And then so basically for the whole pandemic, I was going full time in the summers, in the winter and spring. And then when we came back to work, since I had a good role going, I took 2 online classes each semester until I finished. I technically have 6 credits left where I have to do, it's an internship for 6 credits. So I've done with all my coursework. But when I was hitting it a little harder, I was at a point in my career where I wasn't dancing as much as I was in the past. So I was really able to balance the coursework for school as well as my professional career in a way that I wouldn't have been able to when I was younger, even from a maturity standpoint, just not being able to give each the attention and focus that it deserved to do them at the level that I wanted to do them at. There are a number of dancers who in the company who now are getting college degrees, and now I'm at a point where I can encourage them and say, keep going. Even if you just take one class this semester, just don't let yourself stop. Take one now, and then if you can find an opportunity to take 2, do that. But once you stop, it's just so much harder to build up the motivation to get going again. Yeah, so I just have to do one internship left, then I'll have my degree.
Amazing. What do you see yourself doing post your dance career?
Oh, see, good question. My internship has to be focused in like supply chain / operations management, but I don't know if I'm totally married to having a career in that. So we'll see. I mean, I'm a very organized person, so that's why supply chain really spoke to me when I was picking my major, or my focus rather, within my major. So I don't know. It's something I'm still trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Still thinking about weighing options, and we have an excellent resource at New York City Ballet, which kind of just came about after our 75th anniversary, where the company was reaching out to a lot of alumni from the company, as well as current and former board members. And the company created basically a database of all these people that they were able to get in touch with, and what is their career and area of expertise, and if they're willing and available to get connected with dancers who are looking to maybe transition for their next career. So I'm in the process of kind of going through that list of seeing who do I want to get in touch with or pick their brain a little bit and see what they think where my skill set would be beneficial for that transition, which is coming up in a little bit here.
Have you kind of started thinking about that transition happening sooner, or what are your thoughts?
Sometimes I'm like sooner, sometimes I'm like later. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have been thinking about it for sure. I'm grateful during the pandemic that I was able to go to school full time because the company was able to support us financially during most of the pandemic, which was an enormous blessing. So I was able to really focus on school without having to find other ways to support myself and my wife. Once I finished school, that's kind of where I'm weighing with the internship. When do I do that? Do I wait till I'm like, okay, I'm ready to retire from dancing, so do the internship and springboard, or do I do the internship sort of like during the summertime when we're kind of off during the summer? It's definitely something I'm thinking about and thinking about more, but there's still not a definite date of when to hang up the boots.
It's hard. It's
Yeah.
hard to know.
Yeah, because it's something that we've trained ever since we were itty bitty. I mean, for me when I was 11, but for most people much earlier, and like it's all we know. And since we have to devote our childhoods to this, it's definitely an unknown, right? And I know that there's life after ballet, but it's like once you hang them up, you can't go back in the way that or the capacity that it was before. Once a dancer, always a dancer. It's like you can always go take class and whatnot, but once you make that decision, it's tough or scary.
Yeah. And it's actually interesting hearing you talk about dancing in the core and the camaraderie. That is the thing that I found that I miss the most. I mean, I miss the dancing, I miss the performing a lot, but I haven't found anything quite like that
Yeah.
outside of dance.
Yeah, and same for you. It's like you were in school with a lot of, people that you then danced with professionally. And it's like same for me. You're in school with a lot of your kids, and then you grow up together, and so you really see a lot of life with these people. That's what's really special is you've seen these people in the lowest of lows and then at the highest of highs and everywhere in between. So you really feel like it's not just coworkers, right? They sometimes turn into like bona fide siblings.
It's family. Yeah, it is. Looking back at your career, do you have a moment that you feel like you'll really remember that stands out to you?
A moment that really stands out. Probably the first time that I got to do Bottom in A Midsummer Night's Dream. That was a role that I got to dance in the school. We would do lecture demonstrations where we'd go around to area schools and bring a small little program to basically increase interest in the the local kids about like, here's this thing called ballet and look what you get to do and look at what you get to do with friends and stuff. And so I got to do Bottom for those lecture demonstrations, and then now at New York City Ballet I get to dance Bottom. It was a really cool experience the first time getting to do it. Now being like, I know the steps, I know the music, and it's some of the most beautiful music in all of Midsummer Night's Dream is the Pas de Deux with Titania. And the first time doing it on stage, hearing the orchestra and knowing I was on New York City Ballet stage doing it was like, wow. And it's a good thing you have a big donkey head on, because I was definitely getting a little emotional.
Yeah.
Knowing that where I came from to now getting to do it here is like really, really special. And getting to dance with a prima ballerina wearing a donkey head was definitely a pinch me moment.
Who was the first ballerina you danced it with?
I got to dance it with Teresa Reichman, who was a principal ballerina in the company for many years. And she was stunning as Titania, absolutely stunning.
One thing that I talk a lot with my guests about is just the idea of balance, the importance of having those passions outside of the dance world. And so I'd love to hear, what do you like to do outside of dance?
My wife and I love to cook. I really, really love cooking. We love to do it together. She calls herself my sous chef. Even in a tiny little New York City apartment kitchen, we love doing that together. And it's cool how she's also a dancer, not New York City Ballet, but she's classically trained and also a jazz dancer and tapper and all this. It's funny how we like are in these tiny little kitchen. We kind of have a little dance of like, I'm over here chopping something and while she's stirring, and then I'm over here stirring while she's chopping or getting something out of the refrigerator or whatnot. So it's a lot of fun to do that together. We also have a dog, which we love to take her out and walks around the city. We live down in the financial district of New York, so we're kind of at the bottom tip of Manhattan. So we have water very close to us on either side, and it's just a really beautiful area down here. We love to explore, and now we're also close to Brooklyn, so it's easier to get out there. And yeah, we just love to explore different parts of the city. And yeah.
How did you meet your wife?
So I met my wife through a mutual friend. It was a friend at our church. We were going to Redeemer Presbyterian Church. There was a group of guys in York City Ballet who went to this church, and we met this other guy. His name is Bjorn, and he was someone who we'd say, "Hey Bjorn, like, we're going to go to this place after church. You're invited." He'd be like, "Cool, I'm going to go to coffee hour, say hi to some people. I'll meet you there." And he would never show up. Then there'd be times where, let's say you're in town and we're all hanging out, like it's your birthday or something, and in would walk Bjorn and order like a drink. And we'd be like, "Hey, Bjorn." And he'd say, "Oh, I saw that so-and-so said that so-and-so said you were going to be here." So there's one time when we were like, "Hey, Bjorn, we're going to go to Shake Shack after church. You're invited." He said, "Cool, to go to a coffee hour, say hi to some people. I'll meet you there." I nudged my best friend at this point because it was an inside joke. Like, he's not coming, right? He's not going to show up. So we get to Shake Shack and it's closed for their annual staff party. So we're like, okay. I said, someone text Bjorn and tell him we're going to go to Chipotle instead. So a week before this, my wife and her roommate at the time, they were like, let's go to coffee hour and say hi to one new person every week. The week before this, they saw Bjorn, and so they went up to him and just started chatting and basically, "Oh, you're a dancer? Oh, well, Tanya is a dancer." So that's how they kind of connected that way. So then the next week, he sees Tanya at coffee hour and he says, "Tanya, there are these New York City ballet dancers at Shake Shack. You must come." And she was like, "I'm not hungry. Like, I don't know you really." And he's like, No, you must come. You must come." He finally convinces her. So they get to Shake Shack. "Oh, it's closed." And she was like, what's going on here? And then he goes, "Oh, they're at Chipotle instead." So we're at Chipotle for about 30 minutes when in walks Bjorn with this girl, and my jaw hit the table. I was like, what is Bjorn doing that I'm not doing? But it quickly became apparent that they weren't dating. And then we just got to talking and saw her at church again. And then I invited her to the ballet. We were doing Midsummer Night's Dream, and then took her out with a couple other guys after the show that night, and then got to talking more. And we started dating that summer and never looked back.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. What advice would you give to an aspiring dancer who's pursuing their professional career?
I would say work as hard as you possibly can. Never give up. Remember that you're so privileged to be able to dance ballet and to be able to move your body in a way where you can express yourself through dance, and to never lose the joy of dance.
Yeah. This was really wonderful, Lars. I loved hearing all of your stories and the New York City Ballet lore.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone wants to connect with you or learn more about you, how can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Lars Kistler, or I'm happy to be reached by email if you would like to put that in the description. Yeah.
Okay. Amazing. Thank you so much, Lars.
Thank you, Caitlin. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Brainy Ballerina podcast. If you found this episode insightful, entertaining, or maybe a bit of both, I would so appreciate you taking a moment to leave a rating and hit subscribe. By subscribing, you'll never miss an episode, and you'll join our community of dancers passionate about building a smart and sustainable career in the dance industry. Plus, your ratings help others discover the show too. I'll be back with a new episode next week. In the meantime, be sure to follow along on Instagram at The Brainy Ballerina for your daily dose of dance career guidance.